Hello and welcome to the Titus Timeout podcast. I'm Jenny Abdi-Civi, and last week I gave a talk at SMACNA about our EOS Auto-Changeover perimeter diffuser. And a lot of people thought it was pretty cool and hadn't heard of it, so I thought I would do this week's podcast on the EOS. So a while back I did a podcast on the perimeter heating challenge. To understand why the EOS is so cool, you need to understand the perimeter challenge, so let's look at that really quick. So let's draw two walls in an office. So we'll have the interior wall here, and then this is the perimeter wall with a window, and you can look outside and see a tree. So the core of the building usually has just a four-way blow diffuser, or maybe it has spiral ductwork with grills mounted on it, but that's pretty common for the core of the building. So let's draw in a four-way diffuser, and we'll just put in a four-way air pattern kind of like this. But the perimeter has a different situation. Here you usually see linear slot diffusers. And what you want for the perimeter is during cooling for air to be blown across the ceiling, and during heating for air to be blown down the glass. So this is your perimeter challenge. As I mentioned last week, ASHRAE 62.1 says that you want the delta T, the difference between the supply air temperature and the room temperature, to be 15 degrees or less, and T150 to throw at 150 feet per minute to make it to at least 4.5 feet off of the floor. So now you have the challenge of putting the air in the right direction and meeting ASHRAE 62.1 for comfort. If you don't have your delta T less than 15 degrees or can't get your air to the floor, you have to bring in more outside air, and bringing in more outside or ventilation air in the winter will cost you more because you have to heat it up before you supply it to the space. So how do you do all of this? So let me move this over and make a little space. So the first thing you could do is you could have a person go and change the direction of your airflow every season. But no one's really going to do that. So what a lot of buildings do is they have the diffuser set so that half of the pattern controllers are set for cooling across the ceiling and half are set for heating down the glass. This is a decent compromise. It's actually called the 50-50 compromise. But it does mean that half your air is always going to the wrong place, because I drew it here as cooling up and heating down. But in cooling, air is going down the glass as well, and in heating, air is going across the ceiling. So the problem is that 50% of your air is always going the wrong way. Now during summer it may not be a big deal, although you could have cold complaints if people are sitting by the windows. But in the winter you have half your air going across the ceiling. It's never going to mix into the occupied zone and will just go out the return as wasted energy. So that's bad. So this is where the EOS comes in. The EOS is a solar-powered auto-changeover diffuser. Inside the EOS is a PC board, a temperature sensor, and a small actuator. The EOS senses the supply air temperature and determines if the system is in heating or in cooling. So the default cooling and heating set points are 71 and 78, but you can make that as small as 3 degrees difference. So if the supply air temperature is below 71, it knows the system is in cooling and directs the air across the ceiling. And if the supply air temperature is above 78, it knows the system is in heating and directs it down the glass. So inside the EOS looks a little bit like this. So this is a side view of our slot diffuser, and this is our pattern controller. And there's a little actuator arm that connects to the pattern controller, and it is connected to a little motor. So this is our little actuator motor and our pattern controller. Now when cold air comes in, it senses the cold air, knows it's in cooling, the air comes around and then goes across the ceiling like this. And it goes across the ceiling like this because there's this little low pressure zone here that draws the air that way. And so now this is in cooling mode. Now let's draw the same thing in heating mode. Forgot the little lips at the bottom. So in heating mode, your pattern controller is kind of set like this. And again, you've got your little actuator arm and motor. So the hot air comes in and it'll go in this direction down against the glass. So let me move this over and I'll show you a video of it actually in action. It's going to start in the cooling mode. It senses the temperature change and goes into heating. And it'll do it one more time, cooling and heating. And so the changeover is that quick as soon as it senses the change in temperature. The really cool thing is that the EOS does all of this without having to be plugged in or wired to power. So there are two solar cells positioned about here and here on the face of the diffuser, obviously not in bright yellow. And the EOS will operate with just 10 lux. So a dark overcast day is 100 lux, so you can see that almost in a dark office. The EOS will actually run for about 2 months in a dark office, so you don't have to worry about the lights being off over the weekend or anything like that. So that's the EOS, and I'll put a link to our EOS video that has much better pictures than I can draw down in the notes below. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, and thanks for taking a time out with us.